Hey, welcome back to Splash Page. I'm Andrew here with Sean, and we're talking Vox Machina Season 2. We're on episodes 7 through 9 this week, the third quarter. We're almost done with the season, right?
Yeah, only a block of episodes left,
One
and
more
it feels
chunk.
very much like we're in the middle of the story.
Yeah. It feels to me like we're going to get some things done, and some things will be left up to Season 3, which was, I believe, that's already been greenlit. So we'll catch up, I guess, in a year and see
Yeah,
where this leads. All right, you ready to get into the story?
yeah, let's do that. And I think what would be helpful for me and probably some of the viewers are if we kind of recount where we stand in this story, and I'm particularly talking about the vestiges, as it seems like we are on a quest for each character to get a vestige.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like resetting where we currently stand, now being in episodes 7 through 9.
Right now, Vax has the Deathwalker's Ward. That's the armor that he's wearing. He got from the Matron of Ravens in the cave that used to belong to the old champion Pervon Sewell. So he's got his armor there. Scanlan got Myth Carver from the Sphinx Kamal Giari, but he has currently lost it to the Dragon Umbrasil. And as we go through this chunk of episodes, we're going to start to come across the Titanstone Knuckles being held by a tribe of half giants, and Fenthras, the magical bow that is hidden in the Fey Realm, which we mentioned at the end of episode 6. Right now, that's all we got, those 4 vestiges as far as the cartoon story goes.
Right. So right now the characters without a vestige or without kind of a clear path to get one are Keyleth, Pike, and Percy.
Correct. All right, so let's jump into the Feywild. So, end of episode 6, Keyleth does a plane shift spell and gets everyone out safely, but kind of ends up splitting the party. Half of them in the Fey Realm and half of them not so much. So right now we have Keyleth, Percy, Vex and Vax in the Fey Realm, right? Percy is very excited to be there. He's read all about it in his books as a child. He was a very learned child, very excited to be there. That turns around pretty quick when they enter a living forest of some sort.
Yeah, and I think that was called an Awoken Grove.
That's
I
correct,
think that's
yes.
that's what I captured.
Yes.
And I was curious, is that just because Vax is who he is, or does that have to do with the vestige he's wearing?
Well, it seems that the Fey Realm is going after the vestiges, or at least his vestige, because it is a vestige of death. I
Right.
think it also has something to do with his personality, which is why he ended up with the vestige in the first place. So, a little
Mm-hmm.
one, half on, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. He
Right.
also he also reminds me very much of, I don't know if this reference will fly outside of New York, but he reminds me of like a New Yorker in Florida or in some kind of beach area
Yeah.
where he's still all in black with jeans and sneakers and boots on the beach while everyone else is wearing flip flops. Like he's like, I'm no, leave me alone. I'm not
And
changing.
you're like, and he's like mad because the line at the bagel shop isn't moving
Yeah, yeah,
fast
yeah,
enough, and
yeah.
like just like the typical like go New Yorker,
Com-
everything's pissing him off because it's slow.
Complaining about sand in your boots when you shouldn't be wearing boots on a beach, kind of thing. Yeah,
Right, right.
exactly. Yeah, he's kind of moody walking through the Fae, and they run into a possible guide in a fawn named Garmili.
Yeah, when we meet Garmili, the first thing that stood out to me is his voice, and I don't know, Andrew, if you picked up on this, but that is Billy Boyd, who was the actor that played Pippin in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, okay, yeah, I recognize the voice. I didn't know from where.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because it's only like slightly more cartoonish than the way he played Pippin, but Pippin's kind of a comic relief character anyway, so I'm
Sure.
not hating at all. But that definitely stood out to me when I first heard his voice.
So he shows up kind of like a guide for the team. He's trying to force himself as a guide upon the team, and it seems like the mantra of the Fey Realm is "We will get you what you need, but not what you want." You know what I mean?
Mm.
They said that a couple times too. Like, I know you don't want me to show you around, but you need me to show you around. I know you don't want to walk through Singhorn, but I think you need to walk through Singhorn. And he does lead them to the elvish city of Singhorn, which is where Vex and Vax grew up.
Yeah, but before we get there, they fight some big like jelly monster thing.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, this was probably like my least favorite part of these three episodes. It just kind of lingered, but I do have a few questions about it,
Yeah.
and particularly about Percy. The wrist thing that he has, what is that, and is it generating electricity, or like what is that weapon that only works like 25% of the time?
Yeah, so that was, I believe, in season one when Percy had a wound in his hand and he was trying to fix it. He created some kind of a gauntlet on his wrist with the gemstone. He calls it diplomacy because the names of his weapons are always amazing. And it does just kind of shoot like lightning out of it. I do love because Percy is a gunslinger in a
Mm-hmm.
game that doesn't have a gunslinger. They had to transfer it over from a different system. So he's kind of a tinkerer, and I like how most of the time his objects kind of fail out and he has to fix them. Otherwise, I think that was a workaround to stop him from being way too overpowered with the gunslinger background. So
Gotcha.
he does have that tinkerer thing going where yeah sometimes he has to build it, he has to roll to build it, and sometimes they break because he's inventing new technology that doesn't exist.
Right. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So yeah,
And the only other thing I wanted to call out was there was a moment where Keyleth and Vex are fighting this goo monster, and they blow up something. It sends spores into their face, and they kind of get a little tripped out.
yeah.
And we hear Trinket talk for,
Others,
I
yeah.
believe, the first time on this show. And that's another great actor of Cheech Marin doing the voice of Trinket, which is very funny because I think Vex actually says, "I didn't expect you to sound like this."
Bear's just kind of laying there on his side, very sexy looking.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the pull away to Percy just watching them both kind of rocking back and forth and keening
Right.
when they think they're
Yep.
having these emotional moments. Anyway, we get to Singhorn, which was the birthplace of Vex and Vax, but not where it is now. It's moved via arcane efforts to run away from the dragons, basically, to prepare for the dragon attack, but also to kind of just run away from the dragons. And they almost make it through, but are confronted by a bunch of guards and are brought to their father's castle, mansion, house. So yeah, we meet their, I guess it's not a stepmother, but their father's new wife
Mm-hmm.
and their stepsister or half sister. Yeah, everyone seems very pleasant except the dad. They have that talk, they have that discussion. Uh, he's kind of the most toxic character I think I've seen in the game, their father.
Mm.
You know what I mean? He shows up, he gives them nothing, he complains that they showed up unannounced. He laughs at Vex for wanting to go after this bow that he doesn't even think exists, and
Right.
then bases all of his admiration or acceptance of Vex on her ability to get this bow that he doesn't even think exists.
Yeah, and there's a moment here where Percy kind of steps in to defend Vex,
Yeah,
and he does so by basically giving her a higher title.
he
And to be
bestows a
honest
ladyship
with
upon her. Yeah.
right, and that's just kind of in the moment he's doing this or making this up, right? I don't remember her getting any kind of
No,
higher
well,
honors, right?
no, he was doing that just to kind of screw with her
Pump her
dad.
tires.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
to say,
Okay.
hey, show
Which,
her a little respect. Here's a reason why. And obviously, he sees through that immediately and says, well, you and your nonsensical titles, go away.
yeah, and again, you could see this is a moment where Percy is leaning in a bit more, probably because he feels incredibly guilty about getting Vex killed.
Yeah. So we head off on our Wizard of Oz trip outside of Singhorn. We catch up with Garmelie, who leads them into the forest by the bogs. And Keyleth finds another sad tree. She seems to just find sad, depressed trees all over the place. And they end up running into Sondor, the cursed archfey.
Yeah, and this character kind of entices Vex to come hither um, because she listens to him or something along those
It was
lines.
something of if his voice gets in your head, you'll feel his sadness, and Vex seems to be the person most attuned to that. Because
Yeah,
even
he's
Vax is not all that sad, he's just moody. Vex is the
Yeah.
one that is looking for someone to accept her and love her unconditionally.
And this kind of reminded me of the Vecna from Stranger Things. There is a visual connection, but I also believe it dealt with people that were kind of going through trauma or sadness, and that's how the Vecna was able to communicate to these people and pull them into the underneath. So I don't know if this character has some connection from a you know similar villain scenario here, but that kind of raised a little flag to me.
Right. I don't think there's any direct connection, but I could see the circumstantial. They are similar-ish characters in that way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we have that intense fight, and a lot of Vox Machina's fights are against random bad guys, but they're also against themselves. And Vex has to deal with her emotional state while the rest of the team is all fighting trees behind her. And eventually, she is able to break free of his hold because her heart belongs to another. They kill him. She kills him with the gift that Percy gave her, a little arrowhead that Percy gave her,
Arrowhead, yeah.
and that's what takes
And
him
and
out.
again, and another question coming your way because this was a very clear moment when she's asked for her heart
Uh,
and she says it belongs to another. Do we know who that is?
I mean, her and Percy have been flirting this whole time, and the only other person in her life is Vax that actually cares about her. And the
Yeah.
next
So I
shot
start
after she says that is of Percy. It's a quick shot,
is
and
a
then it jumps to
Percy.
Vax and
Yeah.
Keyleth. But
That's why I was kind of putting those little milestones on things that Percy was doing
mhm.
for Vex because I think that was a moment where anyone that's really been paying attention should be led to believe that she is talking about Percy in that moment. Now, I'm not saying that that's really what it is because I'm not familiar with the source material, but that's definitely the way this show was leading us.
Yes, absolutely. So Sondor's dead. Vex has learned to love. We've got our bow Fenthras. And our friend Garmili reappears to open a rift back to Taldore because they gave him a good time over the last couple days. They had some fun. He got some enjoyment, so he said, I'll let you go home.
And then once that portal is closed, he transforms into another character. Is that a character we've seen before? Because I had no idea who this
That is
was.
not a character we've seen before, but it is a character we will see again,
Okay,
assuming we get enough seasons to complete the story.
right. I feel like they wouldn't have changed him into a character we'd never see
Yeah.
again. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that I had missed from a previous
Now, that's
episode.
something that comes up much later in the story,
Cool.
and I guess if, God forbid, we never make it to that point, it's just kind of a nod of the head to the people who watch the stream.
Gotcha.
But they should come back, yeah. All right, let's move on to the Grog, Pike, and Scanlan storyline outside of the Fey Realm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sounds good. In my opinion, this was the better storyline of the 3 episode arc, so I'm excited to talk about it.
We start with them just appearing somewhere in Tal'Dorei, we don't know where, and Grog basically gets rid of Craven Edge in a series of events.
Yeah, there was definitely a struggle on his part, but it was inevitable, right, that he's gonna get over this.
Right.
But the thing I do love about the way this goes down, him breaking the sword, all that blood coming out, is it sucks his actual strength out of him. So he no longer
Yes.
has any muscles in his body. In fact, Scanlan's carrying him around for quite a bit. But
Yeah.
it totally connects to a few episodes ago when he is being asked what gives him his strength. So, we are going to learn what makes Grog strong because he says his heart, his rage, his muscles, which were all incorrect. And now
Mm.
we're seeing for a fact that it's not his muscles.
Yes. And the only thing that got him to break out of murdering everyone with Craven Edge was Pike's plea, which makes sense once we learn his backstory with Pike.
Mm-hmm.
But first, we have a travel montage, and they kind of make their way across the land, which was very exciting. That made me so happy to watch that song. I know you haven't seen a lot of the game, but anytime someone said they were making their way somewhere, the entire rest of the cast would interrupt with "Making My Way," which was the Vanessa Carlton 1,000 Miles song, and
Ah,
that became a thing in the game. And the fact that they had a song called "Making My Way" made me, and I'm sure so many other people, very, very happy.
that's great.
But they make their way over to Wilhand Trickfoot's house, voiced by Henry Winkler.
Oh, nice.
Honestly, perfect voice casting because this is such the most nice, beautiful human being. Like the kind of guy that could look into the eye of a murderous half giant and make him turn and not kill everyone.
Hmm.
Henry Winkler. And we find out that he's going to need some kind of suppository to get rid of his curse.
Yeah, which is gleefully placed in by
Administered, yeah.
Scanlan. So,
Yeah, and he's very happy to oblige. And we get to learn a little bit about Grog's backstory, where he was part of the murderous herd of half giants. And that was the day he saw Wilhand and his locket with Pike's face in it. I have a family. And I guess Wilhand was just so pure that he was able to get Grog to want to spare his life, which is what got him nearly murdered and left for dead by the rest of the clan.
then we know that the clan has been kind of working for the dragons,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly Kevdak, which I believe is how you pronounce Grog's uncle's name, who
Yes,
actually has the vestiges, the Titan stone knuckles, I believe they're called.
correct.
And so now their goal is to go and figure out a way to get that vestige away from Grog's uncle, with Grog with no power and only Pike and Scanlan.
Right. So Scanlan, of course, decides to go in on his own as a dragonfly. And Scanlan the Revolutionary sneaks into town and runs into a bunch of other, what would you call them? Refugees?
Sure, yeah, that works.
Yeah. So he runs into this group of refugees. One of them, Kaylee the Gnome, Dr. Dranzel's traveling troupe, and a couple other characters that just happen to also be there. And basically, Scanlan spends that episode being shamed by this gnome Kaylee, who has heard of his exploits and is like, "Of course you'd run. Of course you'd leave us on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you be selfish and leave us here?" And kind of shames him into helping them escape. At which point they escape and they just happen to run into Pike and Grog, who've come back into town.
Yeah, and so Umbercell comes back and basically tells the half giants that they're not doing enough. That that one box of gold isn't nearly enough to keep the rest of the conclave happy. And the difference, in my opinion, between Umbersoul and the other dragons, obviously Umbersoul has been kind of the main bad for this season because it's the dragon we've spent the most time with, is he kind of understands what these vestiges are and what they could be.
Right.
While Thordax has no interest in it. He just wants all the gold. He's like, we've already done what we needed to do. So my question for you, Andrew, around kind of the vestiges in Umbersoul, like, is there a little drama in Dragonland? Like, is Umbersoul kind of looking at Thordax being like he's missing something here, or is Umbersoul just kind of doing his job and being like, "It'd be pretty sweet if I'm able to collect these as well."
Well, it looks like Umbrasyl is being egged on by Anna Ripley, who is
Mm-hmm.
traveling with him and kind of whispering into his ear, like, "What are you doing following Thordak? We could take his." He even tells the half giants that he wants them to get Thordak's gold for him. So it does seem like there's some kind of tension there,
Yeah,
and I think that's all being led by Anna Ripley, kind of whispering in his ear.
yeah, another dynamic. So very excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, that's going to be exciting in the next couple episodes into next season.
Yep. So we see Grog's backstory,
Yeah,
and it looks very much like he's in the swing of things. And to your point, when he meets Pike's great great grandfather, he is unable to kill him, and because of that, he ends up fighting his cousin, and then his uncle. His uncle, obviously, with the Titanstone knuckles.
yep.
I don't know if you paid attention to the kind of sound design that they did on that fight, or I guess it's not even a fight; it's just an absolute beating. They actually, I think, pump in thunder when the Titan
Interesting.
Stone Knuckles hit Grog, and it's like, an earth-shattering boom
Right.
in the show. So it just goes to show how truly powerful these gauntlets are. And
Yeah.
then Grog's left for dead.
Basically. And when Wilhan was telling him what he needed was a shock to the system, I have a feeling that those Titanstone knuckles are going to shock some of his musculature back into place.
Mm,
I could see that as how that works. We'll find out, I guess, in a little less than a week.
yeah.
But he
And
does decide to stay back and confront his uncle on his own. He said, "This is something I have to do by myself." But of course, Pike and Scanlan follow him.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, this is one of the weeks that the 3-episode drop really helped. I think, the way the trajectory of these 3 episodes went, I think 7 was easily the worst. 8 and then 9 left me where I was like, I need 2 more episodes.
Right.
Because where they leave it is Grog essentially challenging his uncle, which is easily the most interesting story of the week in my opinion, and easily the best place to have a cliffhanger, because now I cannot wait for next week.
That's fair. Yeah, it was a very much travel kind of episodes. You have half the group traveling to the Fey Realm. I did enjoy the fight with Sondor, the very emotional fight there, and then Grog and the gang traveling, making their way across the land to, find Kevdak. Until that last moment where he stands up. I guess we'll leave this on a cliffhanger too until we get back to the finale of season 2, right?
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
All right. I'm Andrew. That's Sean. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy, YouTube.